Good evening. Welcome to the April 20th Clifton Park Town Board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Teresa, if you call the roll.
Councilman Whalen?
Here.
Councilwoman Standard?
Here.
Councilman Romano?
Here.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Here.
Supervisor Barrett?
Here. All town board members are present for the meeting. Teresa, April 6th, right?
April 6th, yes.
Entertain a motion to approve town board meeting minutes of April 6th. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Romano, second by Ms. Wallowitz. Discussion. Yeah, Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. Communications and announcements, just a couple of quick things. We've given lengthy communications and announcements the last couple of weeks about different aspects of town operations. Just want to say that due to the extension of, well, I guess it's called New York Pause, otherwise known as the shutdown of the state, has extended to May 15th. So our workforce reduction levels will therefore continue at their current status through at least May 15th. I didn't see the public press conference or whatever, public briefing. But I was told that, I guess it was intimated that the whole state would open at the same time, so there's not going to be a situation where upstate would open before downstate and so on and so forth. I know there's been a lot of talk about that, but apparently that is not in the cards at this time. So with that being said, we'll continue as is. I want to thank everybody here at the town for being very flexible. As I go down to the transfer station, we went down Saturday for a little while just to kind of see how things were going on a typically busy Saturday at the transfer station, watching what's occurring with buildings and grounds and other departments that are out there in the parks and working hard. A lot is getting done, and that's a testament to the efficiency and flexibility and expertise of our town employees. So I do want to thank all of them for continuing to work hard. We continue our extensive outreach to seniors in our community, in particular with our grocery shopping services, running errands, and working with Ravenswood, which they continue that program where they're donating about 90 dinners a week. I guess they may want to increase it even more. So I want to thank them and all of our volunteers that are helping us serve an incredible amount of people within our community throughout the week. So at this point, there's really nothing new to update from the last meeting with regard to the coronavirus and our response. It's still something where, it's day to day. We're changing and altering schedules and personnel and day-to-day tasks on a regular basis as situations change on the ground. So that's something that has continued and will continue for some time, I expect. But there are a couple of things I just wanted to mention real quick about. Received some questions about how does contact tracing work, and is the town doing any contact tracing? And the answer to that is no, not, at least not directly. Those types of tasks, oversight is done at the county by county public health. And what happened, I've known some people in this situation, so they've explained it to me. we've had briefings from County Public Health for weeks now, as far as what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. But basically, anybody that tests positive, and right now, well, as of yesterday, we had 3,100 people in the county that have been tested. But when somebody tests positive, they are interviewed. They discuss everybody that they may have come in contact with or they may have exposed in recent days. Those people are contacted and advised to quarantine for up to 15 days. And I say up to 15 days because each situation can be a little different, depending on when the person might have been exposed to somebody that was positive. And I know several people that received that call. Received that call from County Public Health that you may have been exposed, you should self-quarantine for X amount of days. Like I said, it's up to 14 or 15 days. And they did that, and thankfully they were fine. But it is an important precaution in this entire ordeal that people do heed those calls and quarantine immediately. So I do want to thank everybody in Clifton Park that has been in that difficult situation where there's a lot of unknowns involved, obviously. But they're taking the necessary steps, the smart steps, to ensure that they themselves can get healthy, but that they're not exposing other people should they begin to be symptomatic. So that's one thing that I did want to mention. So that contact tracing is extensive. It's being done each and every day, and it is triggered by somebody who tests positive. So that is a question we get from time to time. Now, we certainly work with county health as well as every other agency to support any effort being undertaken with regard to people that are quarantined and may need assistance, and that's all part of what we're doing with our outreach to seniors and other people in the community that need our help. So I do want to say on Thursday night from 6 to 7, we'll be doing a Facebook Live right here on the dais with Dr. Mike McAvoy. Mr. McAvoy is somebody that is present at every single level of this epidemic in the hospitals, working at the county level, working with local EMS agencies. So he is somebody that has not only a bird's eye view, but somebody that's in the trenches on the front lines, working to fight this battle against the virus. So we'll have an opportunity for people to email questions ahead of time. I have a lot of questions that I'd like to ask them based on, again, people have asked me questions. I want to make sure those questions get answered. Same for other town board members, but also have an opportunity for interested residents to submit questions, so that way we're prepared when we have Dr. McAvoy here for an hour. So it'll be 6 to 7 on Thursday night, and we'll do it right from this dais. And our goal is to have an in-depth discussion and answer some of the questions that people have. There's a lot of information out there, national news, local news, briefings that you see every day from the White House, from the governor's from the state capitol, from different counties. So it's good sometimes to just have a one-on-one conversation with an expert in the field that is in the midst of this battle each and every day. So I want to thank Mike for for agreeing to do that, and we'll have more information coming forward on that. Any other communications or announcements at this time? Okay. All right, well, let's get right to it. We have a couple of public hearings, and public hearings are a little different than in the past, that's for sure. We're following, the town of Clifton Park's following all the new guidelines from New York State. And I did put something out recently publicly about that the town is following all of the guidelines, mandates, directives from New York State across the board. So, we're not picking and choosing what we are following and what we're not. And those directives and mandates change. There's no doubt about that. The golf course is a perfect example. We went through, and I want to thank Councilman Romano for his work on that. We changed so much about how the operations at the golf course would move forward in the year 2020. And we were open for a few days. We had volunteers working at the booth. I want to thank Lori Hughes. She worked 8 hours in one weekend, traded shifts with me, and both worked 8 hours and got through that weekend. And then that Monday morning, there was new guidance from New York State that golf courses were considered non-essential and needed to close. So we naturally closed the golf course right away. Now there's new guidance that golf courses can operate under certain conditions and so on and so forth. At this point, we're not looking to open the golf course right away, even if it is allowed. We're going to take our time on that, but that's one example. But we're following the guidance and directives and mandates from New York State across the board. So I just want to make sure we make that point, and that includes how the town board meetings are conducted, as well as the public hearings. So, for the first public hearing, Teresa, if you could read the legal notice as it appeared in the Gazette.
Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, notice of public hearing regarding an extension to the Dutch Meadows Sewer District Number 1. Please take notice that the town board of the town of Clifton Park will conduct a public hearing on Monday, April 20th, 2020 at 5:05 p.m. in the Wood Memorial Meeting Room in Town Hall located at 1 Town Hall Plaza, Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, regarding an extension to the Dutch Meadows Sewer District Number 1. The proposed extension would add 5 properties to the district generally known as 92, 94, 96, 98, and 102 Post Road. The annual cost of the proposed extension to the typical property in the extension is estimated to be $556 per year, consisting of ad valorem assessments and $247 in sewer charges payable to the Saratoga County Sewer District Number 1 and $160 for the Dutch Meadows Sewer District Number 1. The estimated maximum amount to be expended for the improvements, including design, construction, and administrative cost, is estimated to be $28,200 and will be borne by the project owner developer without capital costs or bonded indebtedness to the new extension. In addition, first year capital costs for each property owner within the proposed extension are up to $10,000 for installation of individually owned grinder pumps and necessary to make the system compatible with the existing gravity-based sewer system within Dutch Meadows Sewer District Number 1, as well as hookup fees of $1,000 per property. A map plan report with further description of the properties involved, total costs and means of financing, and other details are available at cliftonpark.org on the sewer department's page. Select departments and then sewer. Due to the logistics involved in holding town board meetings during the current public health emergency and pursuant to Governor Cuomo's emergency executive orders affecting the conduct of public meetings, the town board meeting will be closed to the public for in-person participation. However, access will be provided through electronic means. Please visit cliftonpark.org prior to the meeting and for participation instructions. And this was in on 4/10.
Okay, very good. Did you receive any comments?
I did not.
Okay. So in this particular situation, some years ago, I don't know, what was it, Mike? Probably Mike O'Brien is here on the phone, head of our sewer department. Back in the early 2000s, the Dutch Meadows Sewer District was formed. It is one of the private sewer systems in town that were abandoned to the town of Clifton Park from a private owner. Other larger ones were Woodland Hills, and the largest, of course, was CK Sanitary. Now, as I mentioned recently, we've been notified that Crescent Waste, which is still privately owned and fairly large system, has made it known to the town that they intend to abandon that system by the end of June. So that's something that we'll have to act upon very quickly, and I know we're already in action on that. We'll need to do a map plan and report, have a public hearing on the district, and follow the same process that we followed for Dutch Meadows, Woodland Hills, and CK Sanitary. So, Mike, if you could talk a little bit about this particular initiative. It only affects 5 properties. The 5 properties would be added to the current district. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm gonna have to ask you guys to speak up rather loud and project. Go ahead. Well, loud as you can. Go ahead.
I would say right before Christmas by some homeowners out just to the west of Heidi's Path in Dutch Meadows. One of them has a septic system and was interested in getting sewer through a property in Dutch Meadows via an easement, and we just weren't open to that idea of bringing multiple laterals through for other properties through a backdoor connection. So we suggested bringing it down, I believe it's Hubs Road, and the owner of the property, the one who's funding this, agreed, and in return, it seemed like a wise idea to facilitate the 5 people that are interested in sewer. I think they're all kind of a group, that the town would take it over once it's built to the property line, facilitating them to all be able to buy private funds and having it paid for by private funds, which ultimately doesn't affect anybody else except for the one person there who's putting up the money into it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And for clarification on the announcement, that total amount of $500-600, that includes the county charge. It sounded to me like it was $500 or $600 and then a $200 county charge on top. I just wanted to clarify that average includes the county.
So, yeah, it says the annual cost of the proposed extension to the typical property in the extension is estimated to be $556 per year, consisting of ad valorem assessments and $247 in sewer charges payable to Saratoga County. So it sounds as though that's included. And $160 for the Dutch Meadows Sewer District Number 1.
Point of interest, that's going to be similar to exactly what people in Dutch Meadows pay. So there is no, this is not an added emergency to these people out there or anything, and they will help pay the debt down in Dutch Meadows, which will be a benefit to all people in that neighborhood.
Yeah, adding additional customers as part of the district will benefit the district as a whole, therefore all the property owners within the district. Now, 5 customers isn't going to make a huge difference, but it is moving in a positive direction. So at this point, the one thing I asked, since we have to do the public hearings a little differently, was since there's only 5 properties that are affected by this, and as long as all 5 of those properties were in agreement that this was something that they would like to proceed with, that obviously, if they're all on board, we're in good shape moving forward. So were you able to get letters from each homeowner?
I was. I presented each homeowner with the financials of Dutch Meadows based on their current assessment on the, from the Saratoga Real Property, Saratoga Real Property site. And outlined everything to them, plain as day. And yes, all 5 parties said they are in favor and submitted that back to us.
Okay. So if the 5 affected property owners are all in favor, then I feel comfortable moving this to the next step. Is there anything else that we should be aware of as far as the formation of this district, and, well, really any other matters that we should be aware of?
The conclusion is district that will generate $5,000 in hookup fees that will offset the cost of the master plan and report. And I suppose in the future, if the board thought that there is room potentially for people across the street, if they have problems with the septic or something, they could chime in. But there is no driver, nor has there been any request for additional sewer connections back there.
Well, once you get down Hubs Road, it's, the houses are spaced, in many cases, fairly significantly when considering running any kind of pipe or public utility. It can get costly.
Sure.
The more pipe with the least amount of customers equals high cost for each potential customer. All right, very good. Are there any questions for Mike at this time? No questions? Okay. All right, Mike, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think we have a good understanding of the district, what we're trying to accomplish. The 5 affected property owners are all on board and approve of this initiative. So that should give us plenty of impetus to move forward. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next public hearing. Teresa, if you would read the notice, please.
Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, notice of public hearing regarding renewing existing conservation easements pursuant to Chapter 12510. Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of Clifton Park will conduct a public hearing on the 20th day of April 2020 at 5:10 p.m. in the Wood Memorial Meeting Room, Town Hall Plaza, located at 1 Town Hall Plaza, Town of Clifton Park, County of Saratoga, State of New York, to consider all applications submitted for renewing expiring existing conservation easements pursuant to Chapter 12510C of the Town Code due to the current state of emergency within the state of New York and pursuant to Governor Cuomo's emergency executive orders affecting the conduct of public meetings. The town board meeting will be closed to the public but can be reviewed live with visiting cliftonpark.org. Scroll down to view meetings. Comments may be sent in ahead of time to Town Clerk Teresa Brobston, cliftonpark.org, with subject public hearing. Copies of the application are available by calling the town clerk's office during normal business hours. And this was in the April 16th edition.
Very good, thank you. We'll open the public hearing. We have 2 easements. We have an historic conservation easement, 913 Route 146, Clifton Park. We have a conservation easement for farming purposes, 21.55 acres at 35 Garnsey. Is Walter on the phone? Okay. As you know, each year, whatever conservation easements are up for renewal, we do those as a group, have one public hearing, and the program continues to be successful, both with historic conservation easements as well as open space conservation easements. And there had Tom McCarthy. Was there anything that we should know about these applications? They look pretty straightforward.
Yeah, they're just straightforward renewals.
Okay, very good. All right. Any questions from the town board? Any discussion? Teresa, did you receive any comments?
I did not.
Okay, well, it's not uncommon for conservation easements. All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing. We do have several resolutions for consideration. If you could read through those, please.
A resolution renewing existing term easements pursuant to section 12510, conservation easements to the town code. Whereas the town initiated a term conservation easement program in 1996 with term easements issued with a minimum 15-year term. Therefore, and whereas the first term conservation easements issued pursuant to town code chapter 125 expired in 2011, and whereas on February 6, 2012, the town board adopted local law number 1 of 2012, providing for the streamlining of the process for holders of existing term conservation easements to reapply for terms of their choice. And whereas 2 applications were received from individual holders of existing conservation easements expiring in 2020 to renew the existing conservation easements. And whereas Eric and Eva Tansky have applied for a renewal of a 20-year historic conservation easement for a home located at 913 Route 146, Fulton Park. Whereas Adam and Lisa Catalano have applied for a renewal of a 20-year conservation easement for their home located at 35 Barnsley Road, Rexford, New York. Whereas pursuant to Chapter 12510C, the town board conducted a single public hearing on April 20th, 2020 to consider all applications for renewal of term conservation easements, and whereas the public was given the opportunity to speak in favor of or against the renewal of expiring term conservation easements. Now therefore be it resolved that the expiring renewal submitted for property at 913 Route 146 is hereby renewed for a 20-year term, and be it further resolved that the expiring renewal submitted for property at 35 Barnsley Road is hereby renewed for a 20-year term. A resolution scheduling a public hearing to consider an amendment to chapter 12510 of town code, eliminating the requirement for a public hearing on renewals of term conservation easements. Whereas the town maintains a temporary conservation easement program which authorizes reduced assessments on farmlands for easements of a certain term of years. And whereas the town board wishes to streamline the procedure for evaluation and consideration of renewal applications for term easements under the program, and whereas the town board wishes to schedule a public hearing on a proposal to amend provisions of chapter 12510 of the town code to eliminate the necessity for a public hearing in each case. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby schedules a public hearing for May 4th, 2020 at 5:05 p.m. on a proposal to amend chapter 12510 and remove the requirement for the town board to hold a public hearing on renewal applications of term conservation easements, and be it further resolved that the town clerk is directed to publish appropriate notice of the same. A resolution authorizing 2019 final budget adjustments as specified in Exhibit A, whereas the comptroller has recommended that certain budget adjustments contained in Exhibit A be made to address the needs of all funds as well as other miscellaneous expenditures as set forth in Exhibit A. Now therefore be it resolved that the budget adjustments specified in Exhibit A be adopted for the comptroller's recommendation. A resolution authorizing the acceptance of land within the Windover Farm subdivision identified as SBL 276.1-84.11. Whereas as condition of approval for the Windover Farm subdivision on August 12, 2016, the applicant agreed to convey 2 parcels of land totaling 95 plus or minus acres in the town of Fulton Park for open space and park purposes. And whereas Planning Director John Scavo recommends acceptance of the land for the purposes as stated by the planning board in their site plan notice of decision for Windover Farms. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby authorizes the acceptance of the conveyance of land from Beverwick Development Corporation described in attached Schedule A for open space and park purposes, and be it further resolved that this conveyance is expressly conditioned upon receipt of an approval by the town attorney of all necessary documents, including review of the recorded deed in the Saratoga County Clerk's Office, meets and bounds, description of the conveyance and retained easements, provision of title report, provisions for payment of all taxes, recording fees, and assessments which are acceptable to the town attorney, and be it further resolved that there be appended to the within resolution a copy of the recorded conveyance after it has been filed with Saratoga County Clerk to effect transfer of title to the property of the town. A resolution determining the proposed amendments to town code to establish a procedure for density bonuses within the town center is an unlisted action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, whereas the town board is considering the amendment of section 208.22 and the repeal of section 208.72.3E of the town code to replace the planned development district procedure for the consideration of residential density bonus applications in town center, and whereas pursuant to the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, the Seeker Act, and the regulations adopted pursuant to thereto by the Department of Environmental Conservation of the State of New York, being 6 NYCRR Part 617 as amended, the regulations, the town desires to comply with the Seeker Act and the regulations with respect to the project, and whereas the proposed amendments to the town code are consistent with the town center plan and zoning, and will eliminate the potential for conflicting development district regulation in the town center. Now therefore be it resolved by the members of the Cooking Park Town Board as follows. The project consists of an unlisted action under 6 NYCRR Chapter 617-2AK as it constitutes a streamlined legislation procedure only. This resolution shall take effect immediately. A resolution adopting a local law amending Chapter 208.22 of the Town Code relative to procedures for residential density bonus applications above allowable base levels in the town center. Whereas by resolution number 63 of 2015, the town board adopted local law number 4 of 2015 establishing form-based zoning code within town center. And whereas pursuant to section 208.22(6)(a) of the town code, the allowable base density for residential development within the town center zones was established at 10 dwellings per acre up to a maximum of 10 or of 50 such dwelling units per project. And whereas pursuant to section 208.22(6)(b) and 208.72(3)(e), the town board retained the authority to consider and grant additional density above allowable base levels within the town center zones. And whereas section 208.72(3)(e) provides that the procedure for density bonus applications would follow those for planned development districts within the town. And whereas the planning staff recommend replacing the planned development district procedure with a streamlined procedure to avoid conflicts with the goals and effects of form-based zoning throughout this town center area. And whereas on August 19, 2019, the town board held a public hearing on the proposed to establish a more efficient process by which the town board may consider applications for residential density bonuses for projects within town center. And whereas on June 21st, 2019, the Saratoga County Planning Board provided its review of the action under section 239M of the General Municipal Law, recommending approval on the proposed procedure. And whereas the proposal retains the requirement that such applications are granted only by local law following public hearing. Now therefore be it resolved that local law number 3 of 2020, a local law amending sections 208.22(6) of the town code is hereby enacted as attached, effective immediately, and be it further resolved that section 208.72(c)(3)(e) is hereby repealed, and be it further resolved that the town clerk is directed to file the amendments with New York State Secretary of State to publish due notice. Excuse me. A resolution determining the proposed granting a residential density bonus to Windsor development within the town center is an unlisted action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. Whereas the town board of the town of Clifton Park, Saratoga County, New York, the town is an increase in residential density bonus for multifamily dwellings units at 15 Park Avenue. And whereas pursuant to the New York State Quality Review Act, the Seeker Act, the regulations adopted pursuant thereto by the Department of Environmental Conservation in the New York State of New York, being 6 NYCRR Part 617, as amended the regulations, the town desires to comply with the Seeker Act and regulations with respect to the project. And whereas the proposed density bonus at 15 Park Avenue is consistent with the town center plan and zoning legislation, now therefore be it resolved by the members of the Clifton Park Town Board as follows. The project constitutes an unlisted action under 6 NYCRR Chapter 617.2 AK as it constitutes the replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of equipment in kind on the same site, and no further action under the Seeker Act and regulations is required. This resolution shall take effect immediately. A resolution adopting a local law approving a residential density bonus for 15 Park Avenue. SBL number is 272.3-81 at the former Kmart property site, whereas pursuant to section 208.22.6 of the town code, base residential density for projects within town center is a maximum of 50 units per project. And whereas the town board has authority to increase the allowable density for residential housing within the town center zones under section 208.22.6 E through G of the town code. And whereas on October 18th, 2018, Windsor Development applied for a bonus allowance for an additional 50 residential units in allowed residential density for a planned redevelopment project on the 13+ acre site of the former Kmart property at 15 Park Avenue within the TC5 zone. And whereas the proposal would allow for a redevelopment project to include up to 100 residential units on the 13-acre site, and whereas on August 16, 2019, the Saratoga County Planning Board provided its review of the action under section 239M of the General Municipal Law, recommending approval of the proposal. And whereas on August 19, 2019, the town board held a public hearing to solicit public comment on the proposal for such a residential density bonus. Now therefore be it resolved that local law number 4 of 2020, a local law authorizing the residential density bonus of an additional 50 units for a total project density authorized of up to 100 residential units to be constructed on the site, as also known as 15 Park Avenue, per the attached amendment to chapter 208.22G attached, and be it further resolved that the town clerk shall publish and post notes therefore as attached, and is directed to file the amendments with the New York State Secretary of State. A resolution authorizing the hiring of a campsite director for the full-day camp for the 2020 season, whereas the town board wishes that staff be hired by the Department of Parks and Recreation to operate the town of Clifton Park 2020 summer recreation programs, and whereas Marla Kramer, Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Affairs, has recommended that Anne Marie Stripe be hired as Director of the full-day camp for the 2020 summer season. Now therefore be it resolved that Anne Marie Stripe, 23 Grissom Drive, Clifton Park, New York, shall be hired as Site Camp Director for the town of Clifton Park's full-day camp program, and be it further resolved that Ms. Stripe is hired at a rate of $1,262 per week to be paid from Summer Rec Full-Day Camp Director effective June 29th through August 21st, 2020.
Very good. Any questions on the resolutions? Okay, Teresa, would you read the headings, please, and we'll consider each resolution individually.
Resolution number 86 of 2020, a resolution renewing existing term easements pursuant to section 12510 conservation easements of the town code. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Wallowit. These are the two conservation easements we discussed earlier at the public hearing. Any discussion?
Councilman Whalen? Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 87 of 2020, a resolution scheduling a public hearing to consider an amendment to chapter 12510 of the town code eliminating the requirements for a public hearing on renewals of term conservation easements.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mrs. Walden, second by Mrs. Standard. Tom, do you want to comment on this?
Yeah,
Yeah, just talk up a little bit, Tom.
Sure, as you just said, we just filled the middle. And, since I think since I've been here, I've never had anybody comment on a renewal. I don't think I've had anybody comment on the original either, but to see that the procedure that we envisioned for aggregating the renewals and requiring a public hearing for each one is a little more cumbersome than it needs to be. And the actual deadline that Walter has is pursuant to state law. They have to be approved by the 1st of May. So I think from my perspective, I'd recommend that the board consider, streamlining the renewal process. If a homeowner already has they sign up for a certain term, 5 to 25 years, and if they want to renew, I think that's usually a pretty non-controversial step, and it seems to be an unnecessary step in the approval process.
Well, it is true that we do, well, it's 15 to 25 years. But yeah, I mean, we, for this program, we do work with larger landowners and owners of houses that have historical attributes. We try to get them into the program. We actually will meet with them and talk to them about the benefits of the program. Ultimately, it's a volunteer decision. Many people do take the option of partnering with the town through these programs because there's a, are you talking to me? Can you still hear us? No. See if you can get him back on the phone. So,
Can you hear me?
oh yeah. So we do try to recruit people into the program. So from that standpoint, yeah, it's not a program that has been controversial at all. As a matter of fact, it's been just the opposite. Very popular program throughout the town, and the effect and benefit for a larger landowner or a homeowner with an historic a home that has historical attributes is very compelling. So from that standpoint, you're right. I mean, I've been here 20 years. There hasn't been one controversial application, and there's been many over that time, and no negative comments about the application. Now, even if this process has changed, everything is still public record, and the renewals still need to be approved by the town board. So if somebody did want to submit or come to a meeting and ask questions about an application or voice opposition or support, they can still do that, certainly. So, certainly not eliminating the public involvement, public information portion of the process. Okay. Any questions, discussion? Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard? Yes. Councilman Romano? Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 88 of 2020, a resolution authorizing 2019 final budget adjustments as specified in Exhibit A.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Romano, second by Mrs. Standard. Discussion. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 89 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the acceptance of land within the Windover Farm subdivision identified as SBL 276.1-84.11.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Romano, second by Mrs. Standard. We spoke about this donation at the last town board meeting. And I want John Scavo to say a few words about it, but I first just want to read a letter. It's a very generous donation from the landowner, John Stevens. It's a short letter, and I did want to give him this opportunity to be part of the record since he can't be here in person due to the new public meeting rules. But Supervisor Barrett, members of the board, during the development process involved in the current Windover Farms residential development, a large portion to the rear of the development remained in our possession. Specifically, there are 52.67 acres of open space areas and 38.05 acres of generally open farmland. My family has been part of Clifton Park for over 80 years. My grandfather, A.C. Stevens, first moved to Groom's Corners in 1939. My father, Fred Stevens, moved back to Clifton Park in 84. And following in their footsteps, I returned to the area in 2001. My wife, Kimberly, and I raised all three of our children here and watched them graduate from Shenandoah, Old Plainsman. My grandfather was one of the founders of the Saratoga County Planning Board and worked extensively in the town in the early years as we began adopting land regulations. One of the things I've long admired about Clifton Park was the leadership that provided a thoughtful, balanced development of our beautiful town. As we considered what to do with this property, it seemed appropriate that the stewardship of the lands naturally fit best with the town. I am a very simple person. I admire great leadership and I embrace tangible results. Donating this property to the town checks both boxes. We truly hope the generations of residents who follow us can use and enjoy this property. I hope to see someone fly a kite or perhaps kick a soccer ball on the property. So that's with best regards, John Stevens. So we want to thank Mr. Stevens for this donation. As I had mentioned prior, right now much of the land is tilled, and he will be leveling the property, growing grass. He'll make the first cut on the grass, and then after that, it will be our choice to maintain the areas where the grass has grown at that point, and what uses will be available as it becomes public property. So, John, if you could, any comments that you'd like to make about this prospective donation?
Yes, sir. I would like to mention just a couple points. As pointed out by Mr. Stevens, there's about 35 acres of what was former terrace playing fields that were discontinued in the late 1990s. And that acreage has gone back to agricultural meadow habitat. Since then, which agricultural meadow habitat is basically a field that's periodically cultivated or harvested for hay, but it doesn't have active livestock or annual crops growing on it. In addition to that, that portion of the land is not permanently protected under the deed of conservation easement, which is the case for the remaining portion of the land under the donation. That we look at to see our zoning of 1 home per 3 acres of density. We look at the amount of lots that were granted for residential development as part of the Windover Farms project, which is approximately 25 lots. The permanent conservation easement covers about 51% of their remaining land, so it's approximately 35 acres. It's not under that deed of permanent conservation easement, but is open space farm.
Okay. Very good. So as I mentioned, it is a generous donation. The property is something that the town is proud to accept protect, and offer for public use in the future. And it'll become part of our growing and extensive parks and recreational network. And I want to thank John for doing that research. I want to thank Mr. Stevens and his family for the donation. And we'll continue to have discussions about this property for many years, I imagine. Any discussion from the board? Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowin?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 90 of 2020, a resolution determining that proposed amendments to the town code to establish a procedure for density bonus or bonuses within the town center is an unlisted action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Wallowit. Tom, do you want to explain this initiative? Tom or John, whoever's there?
Sure, I can explain it, Philip.
Okay.
It's John Scavo. The type 2 action pursuant to seeker is a legislative action that just provides clarification to what the code already allows the board to do, which is grant a density incentive. So what this does is outline, provides predictability in terms of if a property owner does want to make that request, what is expected by the town board as a minimum for information to base the decision on, and provides that guidance to the applicant or property owner what the procedure would be also.
Right, and give us an idea of why it's different than the current structure of our
So
code.
right now, and again, this first action is just to say that adopting a procedure won't have any significant environmental impact. Right now, the way our town code under the form-based code reads is the town board is authorized to grant a density incentive up to 100%, which would be 50 additional units based on a calculation of 10 units per acre, with a maximum cap of any one project not exceeding 50 units. So by essentially entertaining a density bonus of 50 additional, you can go up to 100 units. The code states that currently, but it doesn't say here's the process by which a property owner would apply. So, this is one of those things that when you adopt the code, the procedure catches up sometimes to legislative intent and put it in practice.
Okay, so yeah, and so just so everybody understands, we're clarifying the code just to offer a pathway to get to a request for additional density by an applicant. Tonight on the agenda, we're also considering the granting of additional density for a project within the town center plan. It's the first one. When we had the public hearing back in August, so I can't believe it's been that long. Yeah. So we had the public hearing back in August and talked about it then. Obviously, many months have passed since then. So between the public meetings, the discussion for years that we've had about the property at the old Kmart, and that's what this question revolves around as far as the additional density is concerned. So that's the property that we're talking about, and you'll see that later in the agenda. Any questions for Tom or John on this particular resolution? Okay. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowin?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 91 of 2020, a resolution adopting the local law amending chapter 20822 of the town code relative to procedures for residential density bonus applications above allowable base levels in town center zone.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wallet, second by Mrs. Standard. Discussion. Good, Chris?
Councilman Whalen? Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ballas?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 92 of 2020, a resolution determining that proposed granting a residential density bonus to Windsor Development within the town center is an unlisted action for purposes of the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. So moved.
Second. Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Romano. Discussion. Okay, Chris?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Ballas?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 93 of 2020, a resolution adopting a local law approving a residential density bonus for 15 Park Avenue, SBL 272.3-81 at the former Kmart property site.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Romano, second by Mrs. Standard. Now, this is the resolution that I had mentioned earlier. That is for the former Kmart property. It's a 13-plus acre site. We've viewed different renditions and proposals from the property owner. And originally, we received a submission of a project that was 200, well, a little over 250 apartment units and about 17,000 square feet of retail on the first floor. The town board was not supportive of that project. Since that time, and again, over the course of years, and more recently, we not only reviewed a different submission that was 100 units, apartment units, and no retail. We had the public hearing for that submission back in August, and now it's April, many months later, and we're considering the approval of the additional density for that parcel. Now, the former Kmart has been sitting empty for about 6 years now. And obviously, we've talked in great detail about brick and mortar retail as it has evolved over the years here in Clifton Park and throughout the country. Slowly, brick and mortar retail is becoming more and more of a challenge for these businesses to remain viable. Online shopping continues to increase each and every year. And as we entered this pandemic and the shutdown in New York State and in the country, personally, I fear that that will be another gut punch for brick and mortar retail. A gut punch that many retailers won't recover from. At this point, I'm concerned that we have retailers, could be large, could be small, but that won't reopen. And if they do, it will be difficult for them to sustain. And that's why it will be more important than ever for us all to support local businesses within our community as soon as New York pause ends and we return to normalcy. And that'll be extremely important for the businesses that will continue and attempt to survive. That will only occur. They will only survive if we support them on a regular basis as soon as the New York pause is over. But very concerned we will lose more stores now and in the future. And we certainly expected to. That is why we began the whole town center planning process in the beginning. That was one wasn't the only reason, but it was certainly one of the most significant reasons, was the future of brick and mortar retail, the challenges that that industry was facing, and how Exit 9 would eventually evolve. We want to diversify the economy, make the area more aesthetically pleasing, improve the connectability between entities and uses within the Exit 9 area, increase pedestrian access and walkability, which we'll have a lot to talk about that soon on that score. So we had many goals and many reasons for the town center plan, but one of the most important points was, and still is, brick and mortar retail, challenges that industry is experiencing, and how Exit 9 will evolve in the future. Part of that evolving includes different types of investment and uses than we've had in the past, and being open to new ideas and new types of private sector investment. And I think this town board's done an incredible job. Our staff has done an incredible job in the planning department, because when you consider the extent to which our economy has diversified just in the last several years, it's tremendous and very important to the future fiscal viability of our town, as well as Saratoga County. We all want good schools. We all want well-funded schools, low taxes. We want organizations within our community to not only survive, but thrive. We want rising property values. These are all things that everybody wants, no matter where you live. And these are things we've been able to not only ensure they happen, but increase on a regular basis. The positive trends have increased over time, and we want to keep those positive trends moving in the right direction. And that will not occur, it'll be difficult for that to occur if Exit 9 returns to a place where it was a couple of decades ago, when we had a tremendous amount of empty buildings, vacant retail space, and certainly not the sizable tax base and sales tax generator that it is today. A town that's now worth more than $5 billion. So these are the types of concerns that we've had for years, which is why we started the town center plan. Fast forward to today, those trends that we were concerned about have come to fruition. And now with the situation like we're experiencing today with the pandemic and New York pause, unfortunately, it's probably hastening the demise of some brick and retail retailers. I hope that's not the case, but unfortunately, there's some evidence that it might. I know there's Neiman Marcus recently was the next one to sound the alarm. So something to keep in mind as we go forward. We've been saying for some time, attracting big box retailers in today's world is extremely difficult. They're few and far between, the number of retailers that are expanding or growing their locations. They might be expanding their online shopping. They might be expanding your ability to shop online and pick up at the store, but they're not expanding their footprint. There's very few. And the ones that are going to large population areas, areas that are much more have a much higher density of population than, say, Clifton Park, southern Saratoga County. With all that said, John, if you could talk a little bit about this project because it has been several months since we had the public hearing. Talk a little bit about the project and some of the important aspects that we should keep in mind when considering granting this additional density. John?
Yes, sir. I'd like to start by mentioning that the project is looking to construct 100 residential units in a footprint that currently occupies what's known as the vacant Kmart space. The Kmart building itself is approximately 2 acres in size, 82,474 square feet. So the plan is to demolish that existing vacant store, or vacant big box, if you will, and construct 2 separate buildings, each containing 50 residential units, and then introducing green space within the remaining area in parking, limited parking, using a lot of the service parking of the Kmart parking lot within the remaining void space that was the Kmart. As part of the plan, they're proposing a pocket park that would be available and open to the public. One of the benefits that they're calling out in their application that was discussed in August was the existing vacant Kmart space with a commercial use based on ITD standards, and at the time when Kmart was first approved, had 101 AM peak trips and 118 PM peak trips with 100 residential units within the same footprint of the building. It would equate to a reduction in vehicle trips during peak hours, and the new peak trips would be 34 in the AM and 44 in the PM hours, so there would be a substantial reduction on the amount of vehicle trips generated from that footprint area. In addition to that, there were some water quality improvements to the stormwater system within Shoppers World Plaza that was done a few years ago that anticipated the redevelopment of the Kmart site, and the stormwater system directly impacted the Bear Brook Stream, which is a tributary to the Lodhill Stream, which a portion of that stream is classified as a 303B impaired water body. And as previously discussed at town board meeting, both the Bear Brook Stream and Lodhill Stream have naturally spawning brook trout populations within them, so there is a water quality benefit. When we look at the form-based code within the town, up on the screen, just basically says that in order for the town board to approve density incentives, it talks about amenities. There's 6 amenities that are listed, and it says including or following a combination thereof, but are not limited to. And it talks about a parking deck for elevated parking for at least a minimum of 100 spaces. It talks about creating a public park or playground maintained by the applicant, which is the applicant needed that threshold. The third criteria that potentially be considered is residential housing facilities for persons of low to moderate income. At this point in time, I think the application reflects luxury apartments. Fourth criteria is the stormwater retention or detention pond, which captures or mitigates local stormwater within or from the town center boundaries. And again, there is a water quality improvement that the applicant has provided to improve upon what was previously constructed with the original construction of the Shoppers World Plaza many years ago, and then a reduction in overall impervious surface area on the site, resulting in substantial decrease in stormwater runoff. Again, they're decreasing the amount of pervious surface as part of this project. And the 6th criteria that could be considered is payment of funds in lieu of or in combination with the previous amenity combination that mentioned.
Okay, very good. At this point, we'll open it up for discussion. If there's anybody that has any comments, questions. Ms. Waller?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? Okay. John, I do want to also ask, we've been through a discussion, a public discussion about this parcel and different proposals for the redevelopment of this parcel. I don't even know how many years it's been at this point. A few, anyway. So over that time, what have you, in your own mind, in your own practice, and what you've heard from planning board members who did approve moving forward with this, they gave a positive recommendation. Residents that attend the planning board meetings, people that you talk to on the phone, what do you think has changed from the time, just with public sentiment and sentiment from the planning board, from the time we started talking about this parcel with the first submission that we received to now, years later?
I would say the biggest change we've seen is the further decline in big box store expansion, or even the amount of calls that we would receive from potential site selectors looking for comparable available spaces at this size or quantity. I would even say at 40,000 square feet, half this size, we haven't seen that type of inquiry in the last few years. In addition to that, when the form-based code was adopted in 2015 as a result of the town center plan and the vision that was created in 2013, it did talk about the need to create a vibrancy and mixed-use atmosphere, knowing that retail was going to be facing challenges, that we still create a vibrant downtown by having walkability and pedestrians easily accessing the various uses that complement one another in our town center, and found a way that are designed to be crafted that residential can add to that diversification by helping to build a sustainable town center. So that was the biggest changes we have seen. In addition to that, we have seen some traffic improvements within the corridor, most notably the roundabout at 146 in Bishop Ferry, a little bit, outside of our town center area, but it has substantially helped to contribute to traffic flow within the town center and accessibility to exit 9. We're continuing to see residential growth east of us within the town on Half Moon, and the existing retail and commercial space in our town center is redeveloping in terms of filling currently occupied space and improving upon it, but any vacancies are tough to fill in today's market conditions, especially in an anomaly like this, a big box that we just haven't seen in the last decade be constructed.
Yeah, when I talk about the idea of diversifying our economy, which was one of the major goals of the town center plan, certainly we have experienced that positive trend. Hospitality, healthcare, tremendous amount of healthcare, hospitality, healthcare, and some residential. And the important thing with the diversification as we go forward was through the town center plan, we wanted to ensure that there would be consideration of different uses and different types of private sector investment. But at the same time, not allow any one use, either an older use like retail or a newer use like residential, to overtake the entire exit 9 area, that it would all fit together. And so far, I think we've done a very good job with that. We need to make sure that we continue down this path, that we have a diversification that works for Clifton Park now and years into the future. We talk all the time about our expanding parks and recreational network, our expanding trail network, and all of the wonderful programs and amenities that we have in Clifton Park. And we don't have a town tax. Our taxes are very low, and we want to make sure it stays that way. Well, Exit 9 is a very important part of ensuring that taxes do stay low and that we can pay for amenities and projects that are important to every resident in the future. So that's definitely important. I also want to highlight one other thing you said, John. You mentioned that peak, well, in the vernacular, it's trips, right? Peak time trips for a big box use of that size, and when I say of that size, I mean Kmart, would be 100 in the AM, 118 in the PM. With the current proposal in front of us, it would be 34 trips in the AM, 44 in the PM, right?
That's correct.
All right, so if you could just now explain if this submission were approved, what is the next step in the process? How does that process proceed? And who is involved? Because this is far from the end of the approval process for this project submission. So if you could talk a little bit about what will happen after tonight if this is approved.
Sure. If the project is approved this evening, the applicant will have to seek and achieve site plan approval from the planning board before they can pull the building permit to construct the proposed residential dwelling unit. In order to achieve the site plan approval under our form-based code, the applicant will have to follow the guidelines set forth for a full site plan submittal to the planning board. And as part of the process for form-based code, we have a checklist of requirements that the applicant must complete, show whether they're meeting those requirements or exceeding the requirements or deficient. Use that to then convene what's known as a technical advisory committee that's made up of town staff, some representatives from the planning board, and other interested organizations or agencies relative to the process. By that, it could be any of our advisory committees, such as the Historic Preservation Commission or Environmental Conservation Commission or Highway Safety Commission within the town. That group meets with the applicant's design team to basically perfect the application to show that what is brought before the planning board for potential preliminary approval and final approval meets to the best of the applicant's ability all the requirements under form-based code. It gives us the opportunity to have a working session to really mark up plans, have a dialogue to look at what's going to not only benefit the parcel, but also the community as a whole and provide for long-term sustainability and flexibility of the state that we're creating to, as it goes forward, respond to market conditions as they evolve and change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And as far as the time frame now with the technical team and the site plan review by the planning board, what kind of I know I'm not trying to tie you down to the exact day or week, but just ballpark terms. And the reason I ask that is because this is new. So any idea? I mean, so I know it's tough probably to project at this point, but.
No, I'd be glad to. Based on other town center projects, the process typically runs 4 to 6 months, and it's not a matter of the amount of meetings, because the dialogue is very efficient, and the feedback comes quick to the applicant. It's a matter of the time that it takes for the applicant to put together the detailed stormwater analysis, the detailed water and sewer report, and also seek input from other involved agencies such as New York State DOT, List 146, adjacent to the project site, New York State DEC relative to sanitary sewer hookups, and New York State Department of Health. So our process is anywhere from 4 to 6 months, and 4 to 6 months from start to finish, and then on top of that, with outside agency approvals, can run from anywhere from 8 to 10 months, even after our conditional approvals granted.
Good. Good. All right, well, that gives us some insight into the process, the approval process. If the submission is approved tonight, there will be extensive review by the technical team as well as the planning board. Any comments, questions for John at this point? No? Okay. All right, well, with that, like I said, we've talked about this parcel for years at this point. Public hearing was back in August. So I want to thank everybody that has been involved with the process and provided their opinions, ideas as we proceeded over time. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 94 of 2020, a resolution authorizing the hiring of a campsite director for the full-day camp for the 2020 season.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Ms. Wallowitz. Mrs. Strife had submitted an application. She has a great background for this type of job, working with young children, working within a team atmosphere, and somebody that develops programs. We really believe it's a perfect fit for her. Councilwoman Standard and I did interview Ms. Strife by phone recently, and we were, I think we were very impressed. I won't speak for you, but I think we were very impressed with her qualifications, and she's very excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed talking with Ms. Strife. She does have a lot of experience. She's a New York State teacher, and she's also very involved in the scouting world. So she has a lot of experience coming up with activities and managing groups of kids, which is exactly what it is that we need for full-day camp. So I think Anne Marie is going to be a really good fit for this program.
Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult job. It's Monday through Friday, all day, and you oversee what has typically been 200 plus children a week in a structured program. It's all based at the Common. The home base is the town's ice arena, but it is a challenging job, and she seemed to not only understand that, but embrace it, and I think that's very important. So that is our recommendation for full-day camp director. Now, I've been asked rather often, and I know town board members have as well, what is the status of the pools, full-day camp, the half-day camps, the specialty camps, all of the town programs that we operate. And the simple answer at this point is, it is quite unclear. We're preparing everything as if we're opening on time, that the pools will open Memorial Day weekend, the full-day camp will open the end of June, so on and so forth. Whether that happens or not, I can't answer that at this time. So, but we're preparing for that, for those dates, just as we would any other year. If we need to delay the opening of the pools or delay the start of the camps, well, obviously that's what we'll do. The other part of that is, even if the pools and camps open on time, or if they're delayed a couple of weeks, whatever the case may be, if we do open the pools and the camps, I would assume the numbers will be down. I think there will be people concerned about going to the pools, which is a public place. Now, most days, you can find some separation at the pools because they're fairly large areas, but, you get a decently warm day and there's a good crowd there. So I think people will be concerned about being in those public crowded atmospheres. I think they'll be a little concerned about sending their kids to camps. So even if we are open, the numbers might be lower than normal, but we'll see. But we are preparing as if everything will start on time. Okay. Any other questions about camp, Ms. Strife? Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. Any other business to come before the board this evening? Okay, just a couple of quick things I want to mention. One, we had mentioned to our highway superintendent when the new bids came in and were approved that we'd like the paving schedule for 2020 to commence as soon as possible. We did receive in writing today, it was verbal before today, that Crescent Waste, that I mentioned earlier, that they intend to abandon the sewer company to the town by the end of June. Today, if you saw somebody up on the roof here at Town Hall or at the Senior Center, they were doing an asbestos check, which is part of the process before we put out the bid documents on the two roof replacements. And so Matt, that email for Thursday night, is that set now? Can we?
It's set, yep.
Okay, so if you'd like to submit a question for our Facebook Live event Thursday night at 6, from 6 to 7 with Dr. Mike McAvoy, you can submit a question at info@cliftonpark.org, info@cliftonpark.org. The questions should be strictly on COVID-19, the response. Like I said, Mr. McAvoy has worked within the hospital system, local EMS agencies. He's the county EMS coordinator, so he works at different levels. He can answer a lot of questions about the inner workings of contact tracing, the response overall, the situations within our hospitals, so on and so forth. So if we could just, direct those types of questions to Mr. McAvoy, please get those in at info@cliftonpark.org. And like I said, I know I and other town board members have questions that we've been asked and that we may be wondering ourselves. So we'll ask those as well. All right. With that, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Swallow it.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Standard.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, thank you.